coming now up on the anniversary of the last time that the Lubavitch Rebbe ever gave out a mimer to people. He used to give out Chassidus to people. And the last time it happened was around Purim time of 1992 of Nun Beis. Unbeknownst to the Chassidim, but 2 weeks after that, by Zach Adar, the 27th day of Adar, Aleph, the Rebbe would suffer a stroke, after which he wouldn't be able to speak again. A year later, he would suffer another stroke on the same exact day, Zach Adar again. And then in Gimel Tammuz, he was interred. And the mimer is called Vata. It's called Vata Tezaveh. It was a mimer written, I believe, in 1980, and it has some very very profound points in it. It's based off a mimer from the previous Rebbe. A mimer is a Chassidic discourse, and the previous Rebbe's mimer was Kiblu v'chilu haYehudim, the Jews that started and accepted to do what they had begun to do by the time they gave them the Torah. And it's a Purim mimer. And the Rebbe's main points in this mimer are very interesting, very fascinating, and they're still in effect today, and there's still things that we are to live with, I think. And I heard by, if I bring in English, by Professor Bush, that this was very unique, and that the Rebbe literally waited. He was 1992. He was already, I guess, 90 years old. He waited literally all day to make sure that everyone in Crown Heights who wanted this mimer would come. And Professor Bush said it took him a long time to get his kids out of the house, and there was a long line. And literally, when him and his wife, I think it was just him, walked in, there was no one online, and the Rebbe was just sitting waiting, in case someone else were to come. And sure enough, he came, and he was like, he thinks he was the last person, and he got the mimer. And obviously, the Rebbe didn't give mimers just to give out paper. He wanted us to study and live with them. And this happens to be the last ones. I think it's always important to go over it during this time of year. This is the Parsha of Vata Tezaveh. And the mimer starts by talking about, the question. It says, and you should command the children of Israel. And usually it says that God is commanding, but this is a command from the leader, from Moshe Rabbeinu. And this mimer has a lot to do with the leader. It says that and they should bring to you olive oil, pure, crushed, to illuminate. And the Rebbe says that really the olive oil should go. It's a famous question. Should go to Aaron HaKohen because it was his brother's job to light the menorah. So why is it going to him? So the Rebbe says that through the Jews, through the service of the Jews, the leader of the generation, the Nasi, the leader, also experiences an elevation in his service. Like it says that Moshe Rabbeinu and the generation of the desert were compared to one man and 6,000 legs, and their service would elevate Moses even to a higher level than he could reach on his own. So he shows right away the interplay between the leader and the generation. The point that I take the most from the mimer is a beautiful point. The Rebbe at one point talks about Chassidim of the previous Rebbe, and he says that when they were in Russia, they lived their life with an aspect of self-sacrifice just in their day-to-day observance of Judaism, that the communist regime had sought to destroy and eradicate religion from its midst, and they harassed first the Rebbe Rashab in his day, and then the previous Rebbe. Rebbe Rashab only lived till 1920, but the previous Rebbe for 7 years was under harsh interrogation, and eventually had to leave Russia. And many of these Chassidim, just to have kosher food and to go to mikveh and to send their kids to yeshivas, their life was on the line. And the Rebbe says that when these same Chassidim came to America and things were much easier and different, they didn't have the same level of self-sacrifice towards their service of the Almighty God. And it seems that the Rebbe is saying, one of the points of the mimer is the Rebbe takes the word kasis, which is about the olives have to be crushed. And the Rebbe says in the mimer that it is our responsibility to be crushed about the exile. And he's saying this, he wrote it I think in 1980, he's giving it out in 1992, in one of the most prosperous times that Jewish people had ever known, at least in the country where he resides, and as much as he can affect blessings for Jews on other sides of the world, this was generally a time of global prosperity. And the Rebbe says, notwithstanding this fact, I want you to be crushed about the exile. And this was the Rebbe's point really since his wife had passed away, that it seems to you things are okay, and it seems to you we're doing well. But he kept saying, if the essence is missing, and the essence was Mashiach, if the essence is missing, then the whole thing is missing, then nothing is right. And this was something that really drove the Rebbe crazy. And this is something he would not let pass by without letting people know what he's thinking about. That the Alter Rebbe had a famous letter in the days of the wars of Napoleon, in which he said that even though physically it would be better for the Jews if Napoleon won, because he would emancipate them, give them status as full citizens, and etc., but he said spiritually it would be much better for the Jews if the Tsar won, because they would live in poverty, it's true, but this living in poverty makes them closer to the Father in heaven. And at the end, the Alter Rebbe writes, "And please destroy this letter." But of course, the letter did get out, and we see this exact thing happened. Now, okay, the European Jews were emancipated. And eventually, there was a whole what they call the Enlightenment movement, Haskalah, but which is really just another way of saying the assimilation movement. But anyway, what happened was, it's true, once things got better for the Jews financially, once they removed the restriction of them owning land and becoming full citizens, you saw that they really prospered materially. God chose to bless them in this way, and you saw assimilation in the same token take off. And America is the greatest example of this ever occurring. Things have never been better for the Jews physically, and things have never been worse for the Jews spiritually. We're holding by, at the highest estimate, 20% of the Jews, and probably in America it's a little lower, are religious. 20% out of 100. It's absurd. Because that's redundant, but it's absurd. And economically, things have never been better. And even now that the country is going through some tough economic times, notwithstanding the fact Jews have what to eat, what to wear, they own land, they own businesses, they have even stocks in the stock market, they have everything they need financially, but spiritually they're starving, they're thirsty, they have nothing. They're literally devoid of spiritual existence by and large. And it happened in a very progressive way. That first they introduced in Germany something called Reform Judaism, which said we can assimilate and still call ourselves Jewish. And then it came back a little. They said, oh, this is too much. They made conservative. But eventually all these other movements, even conservative, became very left-wing oriented. And that's where it is kind of today, in my opinion, my own opinion. And this is something that the Rebbe was not going to take sitting down. And just like his predecessor, and just like the Alter Rebbe, you see the Schneerson and Shane on this is there's continuity like you wouldn't believe through 7 generations. When the previous Rebbe also got to America, he said, "Where are your beards? Where is the kosher food? Where's the mikveh?" He said, "Don't think America is going to be any different. I'm not going to let it be any different." And you saw he was able to make a pretty strong repentance movement of penitent people who came back to the traditional garb of European Jewry and the stricter adherence to Jewish law, the Hasidic adherence, but it still didn't please him, and because he sensed of himself that he was the general leader of the entirety of the Jewish people. But I think in his day he probably was, in my opinion. But still, he wasn't going to sleep until every single Jew was affected with the spirit of return. And this was in the days he was in the days of the Holocaust, and then after the Holocaust came his successor, the Rebbe, and he also just wouldn't let the Jews sleep or drink or eat or be comfortable in this state of exile. And this is something that I think every year around this time, it always happens around Purim time when we're focused on happiness. But the Rebbe wants us, before we get into the full celebration, to understand this point, I believe, that Judaism requires self-sacrifice to the point of actually giving up your life. It's as if someone tells you commit adultery, commit idol worship, or die, you have to die. And this is, and the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, if this is true by Perek of the 25th chapter, if this is true in a big case, it's also true in a little case. Even if it's not so big, you have to literally be willing to give up your life for the sake of God at all times. And this is what when we say Shema, when a Jew covers his eyes and he declares the oneness of God throughout the universe and throughout all the 4 worlds, what he's saying is, I would give up my life for you at this very moment. That's what Shema is supposed to invoke. That's the feeling it's supposed to draw down upon a person. That's the dread. That's the awe. And this is something that the Rebbe was very, very big on, and he was yelling and screaming it, especially since from 1998 to 1992 till Zachadar, when he literally couldn't yell or scream anymore. So I thought I would share it with you. I think it's a very good mimer to learn. They should have it in English at this point. I think they do, and I think Hus called it the Faithful Shepherd. And because another point of the mimer is that he talks about that it's the job of the leader generation to instill faith within the Jewish people. He says that the expression "faithful shepherd" can either mean a shepherd who's faithful to God, or a shepherd who shepherds faith, as it were. He engenders faith, and he makes sure faith is a real thing by the Jewish people. So anyway, there's a lot of beautiful points in it. I encourage you all to read it. You can call your local Chabad house and have them go over it with you. It's not so long, but it's very beautiful, and maybe merit to really experience this feeling of being crushed over the exile. Now that we had a 9-year-old boy, Love Shalom, pass away, and still reeling from the incidents in Mumbai. And hopefully soon we won't, like it says in the longer Tachnun, that Hashem should take away from us the plague of death. Maybe speedily in our days.